Thank you. Senator Urquhart. Senator Lyons.
Thank you, Mr President. I rise too to speak in opposition to the Social Services and Other Legislation Amendment Senior Supplement Cessation Bill of 2014. And I begin by saying it's been a tough week in the Senate so far, as the government has tried to get its harsh, cruel budget through the Senate. And I wonder, as we head to the end of 2014, if indeed we will be here in 2015 defending our great Australian psyche, part of our culture of a fair go. Is when will the Abbott government get the message that there's not a voter in this country who is on a low income or has a family or a single person under 30 who supports this harsh, cruel budget? And today we've had to defend the paltry pay offer to the Australian Defence Forces in this place. I brought to the Abbott government's attention its disgraceful lack of bargaining in good faith with the CPSU, who now have in the Department of Human Services, the biggest government agency, a 95% vote for industrial action. And somehow the government labels them as irresponsible. I mean, what we've seen over and over again from the Abbott government is this blame shifting going on. They try and blame Labor, or they try and blame the unions, or they try and blame anybody but themselves. The Abbott government now has been in power for more than 12 months. It's time they stood up to their own decisions and were honest with the sorts of policies and the type of Australia that they want to create. And it's one of dog eat dog. It's you're on your own, your family looks after you, or you look after yourself, because it's not the federal government's responsibility. The amount of time that Labor senators have heard government senators and government MPs say, we don't run hospitals, we don't run schools, and therefore somehow trying to abrogate their responsibility towards schools and health and education. But quite clearly, the government has responsibility when it comes to senior Australians. And yesterday in this place we had a bill before us. Most were sensible moves that the Labor Party had indicated months and months ago that we would support. But no, the Abbott government indicated it wanted to wrap them up with other harsh, cruel measures, which Labor has been very clear about from day one that we would not support. And despite us saying no over and over again, the government obviously tried through its new approach, its backdoor deals, to try and get the bills approved, but it's failed in that. And so now what we're seeing is this mishmash of bills coming through with the little bits that are agreed, and the other bits, the harsh, cruel pieces, are still there, and it is still the intention, as we understand it, of the Prime Minister and the Treasurer, Mr Hockey, of trying to ram those bills, those harsh, cruel measures, through our parliament at some time into the future, whether it's the next sitting period or next year. Apparently it is still their decision to do this, despite what must be an overwhelming negative response. The government seems to think the best way forward is to just plough on with their harsh, cruel measures. And yesterday in this place I informed the Senate that I'd held a very successful meeting of seniors in the electorate of Swan, the electorate that I live in Western Australia. More than 100 came along, very, very alarmed. Some of those were self-funded retirees, very concerned about the loss of the senior supplement that the Abbott government has stolen from them, without, couldn't really even call it that one a broken promise, completely came out of the blue, that one did. So Australia's seniors, whether they're dependent upon the pension or self-funded retirees, must be wondering how much more the Abbott government can cut and can take from them. Seriously, they're one of the groups the Abbott government has absolutely gone after in our community. Senior Australians who've paid their debt to society, who've raised families, who've taken on responsible jobs, that have taken out mortgages when they've bought their homes or they've been in rental accommodation, upright citizens who continue well after retirement to add value in our communities through the volunteering that they do, through looking after grandchildren if they have them, through all of the services they provide, whether it's the Red Cross in our hospitals, whether it's the local Meals on Wheels. Nobody in this place would dispute the role that seniors play in our society, except the Abbott government, who shows them no respect at all, no regard, just complete disrespect, by making their life as tough as they can, And after all, it was the Prime Minister before the election who promised Australian pensioners there'd be no cuts to pensions. And on the issue of the seniors supplement, he was completely silent. Yet the Abbott government has not only cut pensions, the Abbott government intends to cut, with this bill, the seniors supplement. And the supplement was introduced by Labor in 2009. We got the message from seniors. Many seniors protested throughout the country, and we actually listened to what seniors were saying, unlike the Abbott government, who get emails from seniors protesting, who no doubt in electorates get confronted by seniors telling them how difficult these cuts are going to make to their lives, but no consultation, no discussion, just a secret cut. This one was a secret cut. And we introduced that supplement in 2009 as a recognition and support for senior Australians that from time to time need help to pay regular bills such as their power bill, gas, phone, petrol and car registration. And we've all heard those horrible stories where seniors living in our community don't turn their lights on, or in winter go without turning their heaters on. And that is not something that those of us who are responsible participants in our community want to foist onto seniors. And that's part of why Labor introduced that supplement, to give some comfort to seniors. And cutting the senior supplement will hit 300,000 Australian households, 300,000, and they'll be $886 a year worse off. And that's not a big figure for the Abbott government, but it's a big figure for someone on a fixed income. It is a big figure. It's money they now have to find. And of course, what the Abbott government hasn't thought about in its usual slash and burn approach, in its harsh, cruel budget approach, is that taking that money not only forces seniors to find that additional almost $1,000 a year, but of course it hits local economies. It hits the local deli, the local shop. It hits the local greengrocers. It hits the cafes where once a week perhaps seniors like to meet with their friends and have a cup of coffee. Because seniors will now have to make up from their fixed budgets that missing amount of $886 a year, which means in small communities, rural communities, seniors will spend less in local shops, and that will make a difference. That will make a difference. In the WA electorates that I have responsibility for, this is quite a hit. In the southwest, in the electorate of Forrest, where seniors will be hit along with this loss of the senior supplement. If the GP tax goes through, they'll be hit with that. If they need specialist services, and we know that our seniors do have a greater use of our health system, and that health system should be available for them to make use of, there'll be additional hits on specialist services. There'll be increased costs for pharmaceuticals, and of course, in the secret deal that the Abbott government did last week, from the 10th of November, they've now been hit with an additional fuel tax, a hike in fuel, which of course in the southwest community of Forrest, where seniors need to drive sometimes 100 kilometres, 80 kilometres to the bigger towns. Of course that will take a hit on their budget as they're now having to pay a higher rate for fuel. And we already know in our remote communities and our regional communities, fuel is often more expensive. And I know that Senator Peris can tell us horror stories of the cost of fuel in the Northern Territory. So, along with all of the cuts that I've outlined, there are other harsh cuts to the budgets of these seniors imposed by the Prime Minister. And the hit on the many small rural towns in the electorate of Forrest, towns like Collie, Augusta, Nannup, Donnybrook, will be hard hit as seniors have less money to spend in their local economies, those small towns where the local deli, the local greengrocer relies on seniors coming in to buy their bits and pieces. They will be hit in the electorate of Forrest. And this cut to seniors in the Forrest electorate is almost $2 million. $1.95 million has just been taken out of that electorate without a whim or a care from the Abbott government. One of my other electorates, Canning, for which Don Randall is the member, they will be hit up to the tune, that electorate, of $1.69 million taken out of that electorate of Canning. And in the electorate that I live in the electorate of Swan, the hit on senior Australians is $1.5 million. $1.5 million. And what have the Liberal members in these seats said about the loss of this supplement to seniors? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I haven't seen it in any of the pamphlets that Mr Irons puts round. Nothing. Complete silence. And why would they sprout it? It's hardly something to be proud of. There's nothing they can say. It's just another mean attack by their Prime Minister and their government. And of course, these cuts are just the beginning for seniors. For seniors who hold a healthcare card, those getting a supplement, many of which do hold a healthcare card, there's a double whammy, as the federal government has also cut the funding it provided to states for concessions. The federal budget cut $107 million over 4 years from WA's senior concessions, with WA set to lose $25 million this financial year. That went and supported pensioners and seniors, discounts on local government rates, vehicle registrations, water charges, all under threat. Now, Premier Barnett has said he was very surprised about the decision. I thought mates, Liberal being Liberal, kind of kept each other in touch, but obviously not the case because he was surprised by that decision. But he's insisted the state government won't step in to make up the shortfall, won't step in. And why would he? Because Mr Barnett's made such a mess of the state government finances in Western Australia, lost the AAA credit rating, has not been able to open our premier hospitals, been 18 months overdue, cost the state millions and millions of dollars. He's shown himself to be absolutely incapable of managing anything, probably not even a household budget. So, of course, he's not going to make up the shortfall. And Premier Barnett abolished the private vehicle rebates for motor vehicle licences on the 10th of July. No phase-out, nothing, just bang, gone. So seniors and pensioners hit the hardest with that removal of that benefit, with increases of up to 212%. 212%. But Premier Barnett doesn't care, and nor does the Abbott government. The private vehicle rebate last year was worth $72. Again, not a big ticket item for state governments, but a huge amount off a senior or a pensioner's budget. And these Australians have worked hard all their lives to save for their retirement, to be responsible, to be self-funded. They've no doubt made sacrifices along the way to ensure their retirement is a comfortable one. They do not deserve this punishment from the Abbott government for all their hard work over a lifetime. And who are these folk? These are not rich seniors receiving this supplement. Certainly they are not. Single seniors need to have an annual income of less than $51,500. And as we hear in this place from the Abbott government day after day about not incurring debt and about not passing debt on to children and grandchildren, you think the one group the Abbott government would seek to look after in our society are self-funded retirees. So why on earth would they take away this senior supplement if it enables those self-funded retirees to go on, continuing to fund their own retirements? I would think that would be a win-win all round, but again, it's the ideology of the Abbott government that always gets in the way. It's the Tea Party right-wing ideology that just stops them from seeing the sense about keeping such a thing as this senior supplement. So these are not Australia's ageing millionaires. They are not. These are everyday Australians. They're my neighbours and your neighbours, contributing to our communities in their retirement to go on contributing. And many of the services in our communities simply would not work without the volunteering that seniors do, contributing to their small local communities with their hard-earned retirement savings. My neighbours in Swan will lose the money that pays their power bills. They will share this pain with almost 2,000 seniors in the electorate of Swan, and from a Prime Minister who promised no cuts to pensions, no cuts to education, no cuts to health, the ABC and SBS. A Prime Minister who cannot be trusted on his word, and who now, just a few months, over 12 months after taking office, his legacy, and you know, a couple of weeks ago with the sad passing of Gough Whitlam, many of us on this side spoke about the proud legacy that Gough Whitlam has left. Well, the legacy that Prime Minister Abbott will leave is one of broken promises. That is his legacy, a legacy of broken promises. And of further cuts, such as the senior supplement, not mentioned anywhere, a secret attack. But obviously already costed and hidden away in the secret portfolio titled the Real Liberal National Coalition Plan. Because as senior Australians can testify, Mr Abbott never mentioned this hit on their households, never mentioned this hit on their budgets before the election, never mentioned that the senior supplement was under threat. And the PM has described these payments for seniors as a cash splash. Again, Mr Abbott shows just how out of touch he is. And there's now almost a book full of those sorts of clangers we've heard from the government. When Mr Hockey made that ridiculous statement about how poor people, you know, they don't have cars or they don't drive very far. They are absolutely out of touch. To say to a single self-funded retiree on $51,500 that it's just a cash splash is quite frankly an insult. It is an insult for someone who has saved for their own retirement incomes, who someone said, as a citizen, I'm taking responsibility for my own retirement and I'm going to be saved for the cash splash comments by the PM. Seniors have a right to feel betrayed by the Prime Minister and the whole of the Abbott government, because there was no mention of this before the election. And I give a guarantee to Australian pensioners and seniors that every day until the next election, Labor will fight this harsh, cruel budget. We will not, and nor will Australian voters, let Mr Abbott get away with this deception, these broken promises. Thank you, Mr President.
Thank you, Senator Lyons. Senator O'Neill.